Hello and welcome back to Conversations with Claire. Today we're live on video again because this is just what we do now. And my friend, my very good friend Danielle Cobb is here with me. So welcome to the pod.
Hello. So happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I was thinking about your intro and it's just brief because it's like, okay, how did we meet? We're a part of the recovery community here in Austin. And so that's how I got to meet you. But it's just as simple, like we're going to walk through a bunch of stuff about your story today. And because I think there are so many parts that I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. And then just like how, like why you're here for me is because of how you show up. And so when I think about from the time I met you to now, which I guess has been over a year, a year and a half.
Sounds about right.
Something like that. Yeah.
I gotta remember to keep this up here.
It's like, but it's definitely just that from the jump, like there are certain people that you encounter them and it's like, there's a warmth to them and there's this, you're safe here. And so like what you do for, and I see you do it for everyone that you're around. And it's just such a special thing is like, people immediately feel safe to be themselves. They feel supported. It's a very unique vibe that you give off and it's very consistent. And it definitely is very felt by me. So that's literally why we're here today.
Well, wow. What an intro. I love that.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we're kindred spirits. Like we've been told that before by Sean and other people.
Yeah.
So I think like attracts like, you know what I mean? Like I see you the same way, just very consistent, bright, loving, kind. There's not a soul that you cross that doesn't feel warm in your presence. So
yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to do today, of course, is unpack your story. And so we're just going to go back to, and by the way, shout out Sean Livingston. That's who we're referring to. And she actually was on his podcast as well. He has a podcast called I Am Redemption and he's recorded so many episodes. I don't even know how many are out now. Mine is not out just yet, but I think it will be in a few weeks. And anyway, but yours is out.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
So it's interesting. So obviously there was a marketing strategy. So I was one of the first round of people that got recorded.
Yeah.
He's had some big timers come, right? So it's like the whole marketing strategy has been brilliant. And so mine didn't come out until like a year after, which was really cool because so many things about that. Like I didn't even remember what I said, but watching it a year later, being the woman that I am now, and then also like how my life experiences in terms of like meeting my adopted family, you know, all of those things that I mentioned in the podcast a year ago. It's just it was so cool to experience myself that way.
The growth that's and you're also in a relationship that you weren't in
exactly
a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I almost listened to it and I knew that I was going to have you on and I was like, I think I'd rather experience a lot of this for the first time and then go back and listen to it. So I have not listened to it yet.
Yeah.
But I'm excited too. And I've been like holding out thinking, oh, it'll be more organic if I like ask her the questions for the first time. Yeah. Whatever. Anyway, I'm sure it'd be great.
I'm sure it will be. Yeah. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay. So, but we're going to get it here. So take me back. Where'd you grow up?
Sure. Yeah. Grew up in North Richland Hills. So Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. Yeah, and I was adopted into a family grew up by myself. I was an only child. I was one of 5 that was adopted. I was the youngest in that family, and basically my birth family was not in a position to raise another child. And so my mom and dad raised me. And it was just kind of dark. It was pretty lonely. My mom was struggling with some mental health stuff. My dad was just really shut down by my mom's behavior based on his own trauma patterns. And so I just learned how to like survive and cope by myself as a kid, you know, and by no means am I saying that my childhood was terrible or that my parents didn't do the best that they could, because they did. And I absolutely know that now. But yeah, I was a pretty lonely kid. So I had to get, you know, I spent a lot of time listening to music, just kind of in like a fantasy world a lot of the time, you know, as a kid. So.
Okay, wait. So you're adopted, but what age were you adopted?
When I was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they adopted me. I think the requirements, like, they have to be in your home for like 6 months, but basically she knew my birth mom, 5 degrees of separation. she knew she was looking to adopt a kid. So my mom went to several of her like appointments towards the end. So
Okay.
it's an open adoption.
And you were one of 5 kids in that household.
I was one of 5 siblings. Only one was adopted. I was the only one adopted. So all of my other siblings stayed where they were at.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of a unique situation. Maybe it's not that unique, but.
So did you always know that? Like that was disclosed to you?
I did. And I was always really closed off to it. Like super avoidant. Like, nope, y'all aren't my family. I don't want any part of that. Like just really did not want to explore that as a kid. Yeah.
Okay. So did you ever feel any, I mean, yet again, this is foreign to me. I've not had this experience. Did you feel what people talk about like, I know that I'm not really yours? Or, I mean, did you ever feel any of that or did you feel pretty at home where you were?
I felt really at home at where I was. I think it's funny being in recovery now for almost 9 years, like the avoidance that I had was pretty incredible because in the last few years I've started, a lot of things have come to fruition or come up that made it apparent that there are some wounds there, you know, but I was so like, no, I'm good. I'm happy. Everything's good, you know, which is kind of my MO.
Yeah.
You know?
Was there anybody in your life that was behaving that way? Like, was there even your adopted mother or anything like that modeling that type of like, we're good behavior?
No, it was like my adaptive strategy to keep myself safe because my mom was, you know, pretty dysregulated a lot of the time. And so I think my adaptive strategy to like keep everybody good, everybody's good. You don't have to worry about me as a kid because when she worried about me, she got more dysregulated. So I just kind of learned how to be good all the time, you know, and to not have any problems and not be an issue.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I cried earlier today because I don't want to make people inconvenienced.
Oh, girl.
Like I'm like, what the hell is this?
Oh, well, I would love to dig in with you about that sometime because I've been in therapy for a while. So
yeah, that's so, I mean, that's why I want to go into your story because when I look at your journey, like you have a lot more years under your belt in recovery, which means that you've probably uncovered some interesting stuff. And when I watch how you show up, I'm like, yeah, that girl's learned a thing or two. And not that you're not still learning.
Totally.
But okay. So any other, I guess, I mean, my like obvious next is like, when were substances introduced? Like at what point did all of that stuff come into the picture? And is there anything else that you'd like to touch on about childhood that you feel like is like hyper relevant?
Yeah. I mean, so I think I've shared this on other podcasts before, but like eating disorder was like it was a coping strategy early on. So I started to use food as a young kid for comfort. I was really overweight as a kid. And that was a huge part of my story for a very, very, very long time.
Okay.
So I think there's relevance in my story for sure, because that morphed into all kinds of other things as my addiction started. So, but yeah, I started smoking weed and using substances like 7th or 8th grade, pretty consistently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was weed first.
Weed first, then it was alcohol, then it was pills, and I was not afraid to do anything. I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't even ask what it was half the time, you know?
Yeah.
So
whenever all of that came into the picture, were you like around older kids that had it available, or like how did you get access to that stuff at such a young age?
Well,
I relate, but just asking.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of, honestly, a lot of my family smokes weed. And so that was kind of a normal thing. Like my family, friends, my aunts and cousins would come over and that's kind of what they did.
Yeah.
And so my curiosity peaked as a kid. And so by the time I got to middle school when other people were doing it, it was like normal. It was like no thing.
Yeah. Okay. So growing up, it was just the environment that you were in there. Even with the taking it on to the next levels of now introducing alcohol and then eventually pills and so on, like yet again, it was kind of just this common theme of like, this is normal in the environments that I'm in. So there's nothing strange going on here.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it came to a point where, you know, I had done pretty much everything you can do except for heroin and meth. And I was like, I will never do heroin. I will never do that.
Yeah.
Those people scare me. And then before you know it, I was, you know, strung out on meth for years and years.
So crazy. Okay, so then I actually do want to. So I love you what you being willing to share something like that we're obviously going to unpack further, it means so much, because like it could be easy to not want to like be honest about that, and that would make sense, right? Yeah. But the idea that I know you today, which is just like I said in the beginning, the vibrant light that you are, it gives me a lot of hope for others. Because I relate to the fact that for some reason I was like, yeah, heroin and meth, no thank you, not going to do those, right? And mind you, there were other substances that I did struggle with, but those were not those by the time that I came out of the whatever. I didn't get into that. Right. And I'm tremendously grateful for it. And then as a result, there are people such as Sean, who of course struggled with that for many years, or you, or any, like, what you do for me is give me access to more hope for more people who have taken it maybe further down the road than I did, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So it's very normal in the environment that you're in. At what point did you become aware, like, hey, I'm acting strange? Like I'd be doing, because I mean, you're blind to it for a time, right?
It's weird because I'm like doing all, like, let me just preface it with this, that you probably already know this, but methamphetamines take you to an entirely different planet. Like the amount of crime and scary shit that happens in that world is so insane. And like when I tell people that was my DOC, they're mind blown. They're like, what?
Right. Because they see you now. I don't look
like it. I don't act like it. I don't. People are like, oh, no, you definitely were an alcoholic. And I was like, I was, but that's not what, you know what I mean? So.
And by the way, DOC means drug of choice for anybody listening that isn't aware. Yeah.
So, answer your question. Yeah. So I had been.
I love that my plant is just like, hello.
I love her. She's beautiful. I love a dark green plant.
She's a plant mama too.
Yeah. So funny. I feel like I have to include this. Okay. So
let's go.
It was my 21st birthday. I was bartending that night. My friends were like, hey, do you want to go to this gay strip club in Dallas? I'd never been to a gay strip club in my life. I had no idea what to expect. Her friend was gay.
I think my first gay strip club was also in Dallas.
Yeah, it's a pretty big scene out there.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I'll get to the details of that. So anyway, we go out there. I have no idea what to expect. I'm literally turning 21 at midnight, but they let me in. So I walk in and I'm like, what on earth is going on? Like all of these like buff, attractive men are like in thongs, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? Are they straight? Are they gay? What's happening? Right. Anyways, I lock eyes with this one guy, really hot. I'm like 5 sheets to the wind at this point, and I go up to him and I ask him like, are you gay? And he's like, girl, I'm not gay. And I was like, oh. So anyways, fast forward, that was supposed to be like a one night thing, right? Like a fling, fun, 21 birthday. Yeah. So what I didn't know is that I put his name in my phone, and he called me the next day. And I was like sober. I was like with my mom having brunch.
For your birthday.
For my birthday.
Yeah.
And telling her about this story, and he calls me and I'm like, oh my God, he's calling me. Like I didn't even. So anyways, that relationship turned into a 3-year relationship where that's when my life got crazy. So I moved to Dallas. He continued to be a dancer. He had a sugar daddy. My life was insane.
Okay. So when because now you can reflect and go, this is abnormal. But at the time you didn't like, my story is different. And yet when things really started to go off the rails, like, the awareness wasn't even there.
Well, I think pretty quickly I realized you have to understand, like, I am now getting supplied drugs anytime I want, right? And but the moment I realized that, oh, he's like basically got a sugar daddy who's paying our rent, like this is so effed up. This is not normal, right? But I was knee deep in my addiction that I had to turn a blind eye, you know?
Yeah.
I was just like, well, I got to do what I got to do at this point. I'm in too deep, you know? Yeah. So it just got weirder and weirder and weirder for years until it was like, oh my God, I'm like afraid to look in the mirror at this point. Afraid to go around my family. I'm afraid what people think about me. I've pushed everybody away because my life was so insane.
Yeah.
You know, there was not an ounce of normalcy left. And I didn't have a job for 3 years. So.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. I definitely relate to the whole, like, looking in the mirror and being like, yeah, I don't, whatever that is, I don't even recognize it and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you made it out. Like, that's all. When I hear that, I'm just like, I'm so glad you made it out, because
I am too, because I'll tell you, like, I love that you hold hope for people who have more of a story like that, because I'd say it's a very small percentage of people that actually make it. Like, my ex, he'll never make it out. Yeah, he's like diminishing year by year, and like probably in prison now.
It's terrifying. I have a lot of thoughts about this whole, like, if you suffer from the disease, then, like, the result is death unless you can recover. And so then I get mad. I've conversations with mentors and so on about, like, well, then I don't, like, what does it take? Like, if somebody knows that they're going to die and then they still, then what? And I'm just mad,
I don't know what it is, because I've questioned that too. Like, how far does this person have to go? I don't understand. Like, how much more miserable do they need to be? Right. And like, I don't know what it is for all of us. I think there was just still a tiny bit of my light that was still on. I mean, I would be in sorted places like I had no business being, and people would ask me why I was there. Like, you don't belong here. And I would get pissed. I'm like, yes, I do belong here. But it was obvious then, right? I still had the light about me. And I'm like in these crazy places, and they're like, girl, you don't belong here. And I'm like convincing them I do,
Wow.
So I think that little bit of light is what saved me, It just never fully dimmed.
Yeah. Yeah. The conversations I'm referring to, it makes me think, like, I've had recent ones where I'm like, okay, is there just some, like, lacking, if you're aware that it's gone so far that, like, death is on the table unless you pull it together and then you continue, is there this lack of, like, belief in self-worth, right? But then I look back and I'm like, I don't know that was present for me at the time either. Like, there was so much fear around, like, I do not, in the like days in the early recovery of being like, I don't know if I'm a person that's capable of this, because I've never proven it. I mean, I started in childhood and there we go. Yeah. So I've never proven concept that I have the capacity to change this behavior. But if I don't, it's just, I don't know.
I didn't have an ounce of self-esteem. That's for sure. So that wasn't it. It was God.
Right. Yeah.
Moment
no
for
human
God.
Power. Okay.
Moment for God. Hey, buddy.
Hey, my guy. Oh, by the way, I loved it. Right before we started recording, I said, do you want to pray? And of course she was like, yes. And then I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, do you want to do one of our rehearsed prayers? Like the ones that we say all the time? She's like, no, I'll just pray. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I still like,
like, I used to yep.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to, yeah.
I've had a couple of opportunities I call it public prayer, where it's not like a, like a serenity prayer or something where like everybody knows the words, and like the public prayer where I've had a couple of opportunities in the past year-ish to do that, where it's like, we just want you to just pray, and I'm like, what? Like, it's so scary.
There's so much pressure.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you realize it's a problem. And then a few more years go, because like by the time that you moved to Dallas, like you start to identify like, okay, this is really abnormal, but this is my reality now, and now I need these fixes. So this just is what it is.
Yeah.
So how long before you, like, what would you say was the time span from realizing this is abnormal to actually getting sober?
Gosh, probably like an additional 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you do to get sober?
Yeah, so this is where, like, you look back and you're like, oh, there was something big working in my life, right? Like, there was 2 isolated incidences back to literally, like, 7 days apart where first one was I was in the middle of downtown, like, Lower Greenville area, if you're familiar.
Dallas is where I got, where the events occurred that got me sober. Okay, so I'm familiar. I
was at Lover's Lane and Greenville Avenue, harped out, which is a term we use for like GHB. But I fell asleep at the wheel with my foot on the brake, and a cop knocks on my window. It's like 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Yeah. I'm like, I'm fucking screwed, right? Like, I just thought this was my moment. Like, I'm going to jail. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next. At this point, I don't have any real legal issues. And so.
And how old are you?
I'm 22.
Okay.
Yeah. 22, maybe 23, maybe just turned 23. But yeah, so I I somehow talked my way out of that. I have no idea how. I convinced them that I was drinking with my like coworkers after work. I happened to have a dress on that day with some boots and I guess not look like a dope addict. I don't know. It was crazy. But he, for whatever reason, I talked my way out of it. Ambulance came, the whole nine. And he let me call somebody to come pick me up. And I just got right back in my car after they took me to their place and I
drove off,
hit the road again. And then it was a week later that I slammed into somebody. I didn't hurt anybody, thank God. But I totaled my car and that was like the way that I could get around, you know? So I had to move back home to my mom's, to Fort Worth. And then I was riding the train every day.
So you're removed from your world there.
Well, kind of. Then I start riding the train.
Okay.
And then that's just, and I don't have any money. So it's like my resources are slowly
shriveling up.
Yeah. Until my parents were like, you need to go. And then of course I'm around them more so that they have eyes on how bad the problem is, right?
Okay. So were they aware before that like something is not right?
I think they knew. I just don't think that they knew how bad because I stayed away, you know?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I relate to that too. I think that it was also surprising to my family to discover the depth of the issue, but they definitely, once I finally like was like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, I'm an alcoholic. Then they were like, oh, okay, well, we knew something wasn't
totally
right.
Knew something was off, but okay, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so what did you do to get sober?
So I went to treatment. You know, I took recommendations. I didn't go back to Dallas. I moved to Austin into sober living. I met a guy and, you know, they say like, hey, maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you need to focus on yourself.
Sure.
I met a guy who was 2 years sober and I didn't need to work the steps anymore. So before you know it, I'm drinking a beer with my coworkers and it all kind of like fell apart then. I moved back home, fast forward. I end up, of course, on dope again real quick. And that lasted for about 9 months. And there was just, it was like I was watching myself on the outside and knew like, this is it for you. Like I've conceded to my innermost self, like this doesn't work. You know, you have to, complete abstinence is your only option. So I moved back to Austin by choice and I got sober in the rooms. And stayed sober. So.
Okay. Yeah. And it's been, did you say 9 years now?
9 years next month.
Wow.
That's
Let's
crazy.
go. Oh my gosh. Okay. So much has happened in life. I do want to, almost selfishly, I want to talk about the first year of recovery.
Yeah.
Because I was having a conversation with a friend who is in a different program for recovery from a different addiction that, also works 12 steps, right? And this individual, so I was just talking to them about like, what was your first year of recovery for you like? Because we don't suffer from the same stuff in the same way, but we definitely needed some help, right?
Yeah.
And always need help. But it was just an interesting conversation because she also asked in return, like, what was your first year like, you know? And the further distance you get from it, the less frequently you think of it, maybe. So what was that like?
It was hell. It was absolute hell for me. I did not have, I also, full disclaimer, I made it a lot harder on myself. You know, I do believe that you can walk into the rooms, have an experience and have a relatively good time, you know?
Yeah.
But I had a raging eating disorder. I had all kinds of things that was still being a secret about. And I think also like it took me a little bit to come back online after like daily use for, you know, of that substance for a year. And so it was a lot of ups and downs, which I also think is normal in the first year. Yep. I always tell people I'm working with, I'm like, dude, you have to hold on. It's a lot of holding on in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of going to a lot of meetings. It's a lot of fellowship. It's a lot of those things because we are still so like emotionally dysregulated and the highs are highs and the lows are low. And, you know, nobody can tell me that they didn't come in and experience that. You know what I mean? And so I always tell people like, yeah, it's a lot of holding on. So just, you know, you have to trust the process and eventually it becomes this like neutral experience where it's not so, you know what I mean? But it was tough.
Yeah. Yeah. In that conversation with that friend, it was just like, I remember the first year in almost like 3-month segments, you know, of like, okay, absolute desperation. There's so much public humiliation here. Like nothing's going to surprise anybody anyway. So whatever. The willingness to do something different was like sufficient, right? Which I'm so grateful for. But, you know, the first 3 months was just so hard. And like, there was no, I don't know that there was even like a day that I was able to like look in the mirror and identify with the reflection, you know, or certainly not. Cause by the time that I showed up, it was like, yeah, I don't even recognize that thing anymore. Totally. Like I certainly don't trust it. I haven't been able to trust it. I haven't been able to trust it since I was a child. So like trust in self. And that's it's even so interesting, you know, so my 3-year is in a week or 2. Yeah, we're coming up. Yeah. And so
exciting.
It is so exciting. But
what is your day?
26th of April. Okay. Yeah. So and it's my mother's birthday actually, which is interesting because of course I flew home late on her birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Yeah. And she like loves sharing that date with me, which is so fun. Fun. Yeah, it is cool. Cause of course I'm like, I'm sorry I stole your birthday. And she's like, it's just fine, it's sweetie. Yeah, literally we're good. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But so, with my now partner, Jimmy, you know, I'm like, no, I think I often trust your judgment on many things more than I trust my own, because even almost a few years into this thing, like there's still so much of that being established. Like, it's like, it's just like faith or whatever all the time. You know, I'm like, yeah, so I lived all of this, my life without any sort of faith. Right. And now I finally the seed was planted. Now it's like a growing plant, like one of these, but it's maybe like that little guy, you know? And so like, I don't just have this tree that's just well established and I can just, you know, like it takes so much time. And so all of those different facets of when you get into recovery. So anyway, the first 3 months, you know, it's like, I don't know. We're just
hanging on by a thread here.
Hanging on. I'm just doing what you over there tell me to do because my ideas are shit, you know? And then eventually by about the 9-month mark is when everything started to like look up and I was actually like, okay, I think I do like certain aspects of myself. And I've now been able to adhere to some of this behavior for longer than ever before. Yeah. But another facet of it that I wanted to just like touch on was the grief aspect. Because I think that was the other thing that was like, you know, you make a decision to stop behaving in a way because it's killing you. And this is, so my DOC is, you know, alcohol plus some other stuff. Yours is, you know, as you said, it wound up being meth towards the end. But there's all these different flavors of addiction. It can even be, obviously, as we've talked about, it could be sex addiction. You know, it could be, we got options. And so unfortunately, you know, prescription medication is such a real one. And even with that, I remember like getting addicted to Adderall and being like, yeah, so my soul just leaves my body, you know? And that was truly my experience with that.
Totally.
And so not saying it's everybody's, I don't know, but that certainly was mine. Anyway, the first year when I think back, I think it's just, I like to remember, and like be like, so it was grief, because not only was I grieving the loss of my grandmother, which had the largest hand in raising me, which is what got me into recovery finally, because I really nosedived after that one. But it was also grieving the loss of like just so many relationships that no longer made any sense. And like, you don't know where to go, and you don't yet belong where you know, like you haven't yet become the person that belongs over here, but you're no longer the person that belongs over here. So you're in that messy middle, you know? And so, I don't know. Is there anything else that stands out to you within the first year of recovery for you that like you wish you had known, or, might just be relatable for somebody? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I love the way that you described that. I probably couldn't describe it better, but I think, grieving is a huge part that we don't give enough credit to. And it's like, you know, we're taught like, don't like, pity's something to be avoided, but like grieving something that worked for me my entire life, that gave me confidence, that gave me the ability to wake up and feel some sort of excitement about life, feel connected and a part of, is now something I can never have. Like, Yeah. And you're right. Like, I went through this phase of having to really accept that these people over here weren't my friends, and having to, completely give myself to this other life. And also being in a new place where I didn't know anybody, and having to put myself out there, right? Sober,
Yeah. Your
So
social lubricant is gone.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on there, and then being someone who was conditioned to feel like her positivity and her being in a good mood was all she had to offer. So God forbid she have a negative experience. It's like, well, then where does that come into play? You know?
Yeah.
When do I get to feel like sad or angry or whatever?
Yeah. And then you feel all of that because now your numbing agent is gone.
Sure.
And so now you like have to feel, the whole like you don't selectively numb thing.
Yeah.
That was a revolutionary concept. And even today, as I actually I think about like today, I experience so obvious, like thankfully I have this faith thing that I can throw on top of that to deal with it. But fear is a very common experience for me today. Whereas I think I just was like, well, just, just turn a blind eye, look the other way, pretend it's not real, take some, do some sort of something to distract myself from it. And today, continuing to remove these numbing agents is like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to look at you. And that's hard, but obviously it's worth it.
Yeah. And kind of back to your original point was, my first year, like, thank God for the women that were so selfless, that really like saw how much I was struggling and loved me so much through that phase. Like, I just want to say, like, we have such a duty. You know what I mean? Like, we have such a duty to show up and be. That's why you see me showing up consistently. It is like when I see someone in the room who's uncomfortable or feels insecure or scared, like, I'm that woman that's going to be talking to them, because I have to. I have a duty today, and I don't get to just sit on the sidelines and like, be buddy with the people I'm friends with and shit. Like, no, I need to go for the person that's struggling because those people saved my life in that first year, you know?
And I think you're a testament to that like works well, because of course we got taught like, oh, being of service is something that you do now. It's not just all about you. For the first time in your life, it's not just all about you. And like, what a revolutionary idea. And the idea like it probably was planted in us throughout our childhoods, and we just like, nah, I'm good. I haven't like suffered enough from this, so I'm just gonna keep focusing on myself. But you being that person, like, I've gotten to observe that, right? And then that encourages me to know that, like, well, when I look at you, I see this beautiful light. Why would I not want to continue to, it's like, if you have what I want, then maybe I should do what you do, whether that's financial or whatever it is. And so I love the example that you consistently set in that way, because we need it. Like, we need more of it all the time.
Thanks. Yeah. I feel the same about you. Keep doing what you're doing. It's important.
It's cool. I love it. Okay.
It's so important.
So after the first year, is there anything you can identify? You got substances out of the way. It's been 9 years almost. What else have you identified that was like in the
issue?
way?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mentioned earlier eating disorder, right? That was a big one for me. So my relationship with my body, with my food, with, that was like a real hurdle for me. So I was engaging in a lot of secretive behavior around that, and, really almost took me out. And so it was like that jumping off place they talk about, where it's like, I'm either going to accept help, or I'm going to go on to the bitter end. And that's the point I was at. And I decided to get honest. I've worked with the same lady for 9 years, and I'm really grateful for her because she really normalized it and made it, I think God knows what he's doing when he puts people in our path, but she had very similar experience, and I just couldn't believe it, because she was this like beautiful, healthy, amazing human being. And that I have to laugh today because this was the most painful thing in my life. But when I shared some really scary stuff with her, like hiding food, in my room and doing things like that, like, she said, girl, I would dig a fucking cake out of the trash can while my boyfriend made sure nobody was looking. Like, and I was like, wait, what? And she was like, yeah, oh yeah. And I'm like, wow, she's talking about it with like such freedom. Like this is not a thing. And I could not imagine being in those shoes where I could freely talk about this stuff because I had so much shame around it. And what I've come to realize through the process of like recovery in that area too, right? And learning balance and learning how to like food is not bad, you know? Like it's okay to have a cookie. It's okay to have these things, right? But like and like having a perfect body is not the end goal. Like I want to do things that promote self-love, that reflect that I love who I am, right? And if that means having a fucking cookie today, that's what I'm going to do, right? And if that means going to the gym because that's something I'm hyped up about and want to do, great. If I want to go for a walk, great, right? But like having to change that relationship, but also there was a moment where I felt really angry at God because I was like, what the fuck? Like I'm sober and now this feels like the biggest hurdle ever that I'm never going to get past. And you know, as I sit on the other side, I've done a lot of work and understanding that was just one of my survival patterns, that was just something I used to like in a moment of like dysregulation that worked and now it doesn't work, you know, like then I could let go of some of the shame and embarrassment around it and also sit here today and laugh about that shit because my story now helps other people and I get to be that same message of like, oh yeah, girl, I did the same shit. Like there's hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That to me just speaks to spiritual growth. Like that's just spiritual growth. And it's so cool because as much as you could maybe wish that you didn't have to go through the discomfort to get it or whatever, then it does give you the superpower later of like now you have the capacity to help other people in a really unique and special way.
Yeah.
It for some reason the cake out of the dump or out of the trash.
So good.
It reminds me that I remember I even told this story on social media at some point within the past couple of years of like I remember like after Thanksgiving, I think I maybe even did this more than 1 year and I've done this at other times as well, but like there's a vivid memory of like doing it after a Thanksgiving dinner where I'd like eaten so much stuffing, whatever. Right. And then like still had some, my mom's stuffing is bomb by the way. And yeah, so good. So like took a lot of it and ate so much of it and then was like still eating it. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night one night and like going and getting it out of my refrigerator and putting it in the trash, but moving it around so that it would touch trash.
Pouring shit on top of it.
Literally. So that way, like I couldn't go back and get it.
1,000%.
And it's so, but that's like, as much as today I get the opportunity to tell that and like in this spirit, obviously at that time that wasn't so funny and I wasn't having a good time.
Right.
But it is just, I mean, I'm loving, of course, I'm immersed in like the fitness world, right? So like I'm loving the narrative of like eat more real food and eat lots of it, you know, because the shame around it is so real and all of the years that you spent just trying to shrink. It's funny. I even realized last Tuesday I went to an event to support a friend and I put on a pair of jeans that I haven't worn in a long time. And I remember getting small enough to where they did not fit because they were a little too loose, but I still have them and I put them on and like I've been working on growing my ass. Okay,
a girl look good.
Yeah. We're working under construction and and it was like so cool because I put the pants on and was like didn't even realize it in the moment. Like I mean I knew that like oh those fit better, yeah, you know, like went on about my life and then I didn't even realize till either yesterday or today, like I was like how great is it that today because the narrative is shifting and my relationship with the whole situation has shifted, like I'm in a place today where like the jeans that I like got too small for, that at the time I got too small for them, I was like, ooh, yay, smaller pants, you know? And now I'm like, ooh, yay, bigger ass, you know? Like it's just fun because I get to enjoy the cookie and move along with my life or whatever. And after all the times where that wasn't the case, it's really refreshing to let that be the case today.
I mean, yes, preach. Because I remember there was a moment, and this was at the beginning of my fitness journey, where I was like, I just had this like earnest prayer and I said, God, like if you want me to be a big girl, like I'll be a big girl, but get this fucking monkey off my back, dude. Like if like that's fine with me, but like how, like I'm tired of the chatter, you know? So like if this is how you want me to be, like let's be it, but like remove the bullshit, you know? And anyways, pretty quickly after that I had a different experience and like fell in love with the gym and you know.
So how did the monkey come off your back?
Yeah, so I just started showing, so I had this like shift in my perspective because what I would do for a couple years was I would work out really hard. I would change my, to go on these extreme, like now I'm vegan, now I'm this, not knowing what the fuck I'm doing. No clue. Not eating near enough protein.
Sure.
because I have no idea that you have to prioritize protein
Right. Yeah.
over everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm having this experience of like these keto and crazy stuff, and then working out really hard, and then I would fail, and I would be like, well, fuck it, you know? And then be in the shame spiral, right? It's like the cycle of addiction, you know? I just fall off and feel like shit. And
when you haven't found out how to regulate it yet, how are you supposed to feel okay?
Yeah.
You know, when you feel defeated, like in those moments when you did the shame spiral and so on, like it was purely from my perspective, in my experience, you can tell me if you agree, but it was like, I went through, of course, all of that and the binge eating, bulimia, you name it, all the different stuff. And that even came back in recovery as well, which was like, hadn't been around in a decade. And I was like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, I thought you were gone, bro. But anyway, it was just, to me, so much of that is just because you're like, I don't know how to regulate this. Yeah. So it's either severe deficit or doing whatever I want, and I cannot find the middle ground.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is it today that like you have a peaceful experience with it by and large. Maybe not perfect, but like far better today. You know, that's 100%. How I feel today. I'm like, it gives me so much hope.
Yeah.
For others.
I've maintained the same weight for 2.5 years, and that's a miracle. You know what I mean? Like, now, your girl's working on cutting a little bit down for the summertime. You know what I mean? But
and you look great.
Right. But I want to feel a little more comfy, and that's okay, right? But
absolutely.
Like, what I was saying is I just started showing up. Even my commitment to myself was like, if you said you're going to go to the gym, you're going to go in, even if it's 10 minutes, right?
Yep.
Because you love yourself. And I let go of what the outcome was going to be and started doing it because I love myself and because that's the loving thing to do for myself. Mm-hmm. And then the results just come, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So I think that there's a couple of other things I really want to like, these are just fun because I want to know the lens you see things through today. Okay. And like knowing that you've got some years under your belt of learning in this not altered state, right? Like you've had a sober mind for a number of years. And so there's a lot of growth that has to be packed in there. And I'm sure it's uncomfy and all that good stuff. But anyway, so one of the things I kind of do want to talk about is like, you've had turbulence in relationships because one of the things that we often struggle with is regulation of how we show up and what we allow in and so on. So what has that looked like since getting sober?
Yeah. So remember my prior story where I said I got sober and got immediately into a relationship. So when I got sober this time, I said, you know what? I'm going to listen to what they say. I'm going to give it a year. And then a year turned to 2, and then 2 turned to 3. And then I actually became like sexually anorexic is what the term is, like where you're just so fearful of like relationship and that whole arena that you swing the other way. I didn't know it was a term, but it is.
The people in my first home group, they thought I was asexual.
Yeah, it's sexual anorexia. It's just fear, really. Like that's just like a fancy term.
Like, I crushed it. Yeah. I nailed it. Y'all don't even know what I like.
Dude, my sponsor one day was like, you need to go fucking date. And I was like, okay. So anyways, like 5 years in, I started dating. And
wow.
I mean, I had it was fun, I guess. The dating app thing is not for me. I just I don't love it. I don't love the idea of swiping right when you see someone who's not attractive. Like that just doesn't align with me, but to each their own.
I just hate dating.
I just hate dating in general. Yeah. So anyways, but my first, like, I guess like real relationship in recovery, there were a lot of good things about it. And then, you know, I think at the basis of it all, like I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was engaging in behavior that I was really asleep to. I was also like an untreated alcoholism, you know what I mean? Like I just was flying by the seat of my pants, and at the end of the day, like it just wasn't a fit, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't have had I been the woman I am today, would it be different? Maybe, but I don't think we were a fit anyway. But I just did not know how to deal with conflict. I was so afraid of conflict. I was so afraid. I didn't know how to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
And you know, like my relationship today, it's like those things have cropped up for me because they're my issues, right? But I have a partner who is safe and helps me walk through those things, and has shown up consistently safe, so that I feel like I trust that his reaction is going to be stable, you know? So it's like, okay, you're right. I forgot. We can trust you. I can have these hard conversations. I can get emotional. It's going to be okay. Like, you're going to hold safe space. Even if you have feelings about what I have to say, you're still going to take care of yourself. So I'm okay. You know? Like, that was the thing, is like, he takes care of himself.
Yep.
I don't feel like I have to take care of him, which is like so helpful.
Yeah.
Because like, that's my people pleasing. I'm a recovering people pleaser, dude.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and you want to you want to help, you want to fix, you want to, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah,
like
I
those were
want people to
things
be
for me.
okay.
Yeah, like you said, all the way back to childhood, of everybody just be okay.
Yep.
That I relate so heavily.
Yeah.
In my own timeline and in my own way. It's just, I think the point of even saying that is because I know that like somebody's going to hear this and going to so heavily identify.
Yeah.
And whether that's someone who's in recovery from what we're in recovery from or not, like either way, these like relationships are hard. Communication is hard.
Yep. The best of them are hard.
Oh my gosh,
You
yeah.
know?
And when I said that I hate dating, and you know, like what I mean by that is that like the dating around
Culture.
thing and stuff is just like, I find it extremely challenging. I don't enjoy that process. I am not saying that I don't enjoy partnership, because I actually like am such a strong believer in partnership and in like commitment and all of that. So like those are things that when I said that, I just want to be clear. Like I actually think that partnership with another is probably like the coolest thing you could ever do. But I just completely understand how, to me, what became so evident, you know, through my experiences as well, is like, you know, you're asleep to so much of this stuff. And so then you start to get a clear mind for an extended period of time, but there's still all of these patterns of behavior that you've carried for so long. And the idea that they're just eradicated from you, is probably unrealistic.
Yeah.
And what I feel that I think that you will probably really agree with is like, so that experience that you had, that you wound up no longer in that relationship and you're now in a different relationship, which sounds like it's your second relationship in recovery.
Yeah. I mean, I had a
Like
situation, but yes.
Yeah. You did so much learning in that first one, and like, and so did the other individual. And for both parties, like, it's not for nothing. And that's what I like. That's what I say to people, of course, whenever people relapse and stuff. I'm like, none of any of that was for nothing. Like, any of the like learning that you did before didn't just like poof go away from you. Like, yes, for some reason something happened, but like, you're not just back at square one. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And so same with the relationship stuff of like, that person showed up in your life as a teacher.
1,000%. And you know what was so sad for me was like, you don't go into a relationship being like, yeah, I'm gonna learn from this guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna be the one that teaches me, right? You go in hoping that it'll work out. And like, the truth is that I'm indebted to that relationship because of the way it catapulted me into the woman I am today on a deeper level. I mean, the amount of development, self-growth, self-realization that happened after that was astronomical. Like,
do you mind diving a little bit deeper on what some of that was? Like, what did you learn there, you know, about yourself that you were able to then shift and change? Because of course, relationships is something that like, I don't think anybody's excluded from. Like, this is so maybe the alcoholism is only some sector of humans or whatever, but like everybody's out there doing the best they can to like struggle through relationships. So yeah, what did you learn that you were up to in that first one that you've knocked off?
Oh my God. Well, what I learned was what my attachment style is. And for those that are listening that understand that will know what I mean. I was very avoidant in that relationship, and I caused the other person to be very anxious because I was so avoidant. So it was like I would go in and he would come closer, and I would go in and he would, you know what I mean? And so I realized how much frustration I caused by being that, but also like I had to tackle what was going on for me and where that wound came from. You know, how am I ever going to show up healthy in a relationship if I can't have a conversation without shutting down? If I can't, you know, be open to this other person's experience without, I mean, I did a lot of shutting him down too, because it was like, if he acknowledged that, or, you know, said I was doing something wrong, I would throw it back at him because that is too much for me to to accept, you know? So I did a lot of gaslighting.
Yeah.
So I think like the deep dive into therapy and understanding like the why rather than being like, you should have done this. It's like, well, why was I showing up this way? Why and how can I be a better communicator? What's standing in the way, you know? And then also like learning how to parent myself through that process, because though I left the relationship, there was an extreme wound that was exposed. And I mean, it took me a long time, a lot of like just allowing myself to like throw myself on the floor, like rock myself crying, you know, like really process like what was coming up and learn how to nurture myself in a way that I never had before. I just tapped into some pieces of myself that I was so unfamiliar with, you know, this emotional side, this like person who can communicate how they're feeling, who can be seen a mess, you know, all these things that I tried to manage on the outside or thought weren't bad, you know? I don't know if that made sense.
Well, I think it does. And then of course I want to get more like specific and granular because I want to like, it's more conceptual.
Sure.
And I want to get really like into the, you know, and of course I'll use my experience as much as anybody wants. Yeah. Love doing that.
Yeah.
But you know, like it's been fascinating to me in my current relationship to be asked, what do you mean? Or what are you thinking? And like, he just waits and is sincere because he actually cares. And it keeps happening. And I keep being like, and it's the most baffling thing because in the moment, what happens for me is I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. Like, what do you mean? How do I feel? Nobody like, I don't even, because then I have to come up with an answer. And he's doing it not because he wants to gaslight me or anything like that, but because he actually wants to understand me, which literally here goes my brain onto the floor in a puddle of like, what
a phenomenon. Someone fucking really cares.
I'm so confused by it. I'm continuously confused by it. And then it's also very exciting because it also gives me hope for self personally, which like who doesn't love that? But it also gives me hope for others. Like I have many friends that I care deeply about that are wonderful people who are currently single, and I cannot wait to see them not single. And being able to have access to communication in this way at this time makes me be like, so that's an option. And so much of this has been, so that's an option. And so in that, like we play out the, what are you thinking? How do you feel? And then the pause. And I'm like, I literally like, it's like my brain is just going into this like wall where I'm like, what do I feel? So then I have to like, I because I want to also communicate back and I so appreciate it. So then I really try to dig and go, what am I thinking? Where does this come from?
But then I also had to take it a step further and actually share honestly. So, which is vulnerable, which feels like a risk until.
Yeah. Cause when are you going to hold that against me?
Right.
Like when is whatever I say to you going to be so far that now this is going to be held over my head. You're going to think differently of me.
I'm too much.
Whatever.
Yeah.
All of the options that are on the table and have been experienced before.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to watch you get into this relationship.
Yeah, you too. Because I feel like we were kind of on. You were a little behind me in the second relationship, but pretty parallel. You know,
right.
And I think the biggest thing is, dude, you have to work. Relationships are work, and like having the hard conversations are scary. Being honest when you're not vibing with something that's going on. Or having to ask for a need, which is so foreign to me, right? Like going back to childhood, like don't ask for what you need. You're fine. Take care of yourself. You don't want to be a nuisance. You don't want to be a problem. So that translating into a relationship, you turn into like, you just learn to like your needs don't matter. And then you end up resentful and frustrated. So like if you have hope for a healthy relationship, you have to ask for what you need because they're not going to know all the time.
Yeah.
Men are going to show up like men and you know what I mean? And I'm going to be like, you know.
So what is that? So then I want to get like, can you give me a specific example of where you've been able to identify that you do have a need and been able to ask for it?
Yeah, definitely. So my boyfriend, I love him so much.
He's awesome. I love him
He literally adores me. And like, I've never felt so, like when they say you feel like the only woman in the room, like he makes that so absolutely apparent when he's in public. Like he doesn't care about anything else that's going on, and it's very flattering. But there's times where I'm like, okay, it's a bit much. I love you. And like, I'm feeling a little smothered, right? That's hard to say because I don't want him to feel rejected. And I also like, I'm also a confusing individual where like sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. So it's like, you know, but like, that's just a small, minute example of like where it's like I have to speak up, right? Even though he's doing this loving thing that's so flattering, like I also am feeling overwhelmed by that at moments. So those are the little things that I never did in relationship because I didn't feel like there was space for it, you know?
Are there any ways in which you would like, so how do you tactfully deal with that? Like, so you actually communicate that. I love that this is actually on video now because this happened last time and this is me being like new to video where my pants kept coming out. I was like, I'm uncomfortable. And I did it. I just kept sinking into the chair.
Oh no.
So anyway,
you got to take care of your needs.
Audio only, they're going to be like, what just happened? And if you're on video, then like, we just take our pants down. Anyway. Okay. Back to your story. Okay. So how do you communicate that? Like you're in the moment and you like realize that you're feeling smothered. Which yet again, it's stemming from this beautiful place of because he just adores you, which is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's like this great thing. And so the old need says he's doing what you like, what any woman would want, right? So why are you disturbed? Don't say anything. And it's like, for whatever reason, I'm feeling dysregulated or overwhelmed and I have to speak to that. So the way that I would communicate that is, well, like I have to tell myself, hey, because there's an inner child in there that gets really disturbed. That's like, no, don't say it. That's really scary. So tapping into her and saying, hey girl, like we don't have to be afraid. I got us. I'm 33 today. Like I'm the parent here, you know, like we're good. Would be part one. Part two is just the only way I'm going to prove that my partner is in fact safe is to just say the things, right? In a tactful way. So like, hey, like I'm feeling this way sometimes. I'm really like, it is so flattering to me that you're so attracted to me and that you love me this much. But sometimes I feel like I just need some space from that. And then I'm not responsible for his response. If he has his feelings hurt about that, it's normal. He's a human being. He gets to have his feelings hurt. It's okay. Right?
Yes.
So managing my response to him not being okay. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then usually it's fine. So actually it's always fine.
You and I were together last night and someone said something that I loved so much and it was about ego. And I'm going to tie this back into relationship. So she said, I'm either shit.
Yep.
Or I'm the shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm both at the same time. And that's really confusing.
Yep.
And when she said that, I was like, preach.
Dude, I got that to my core.
Yeah. It was like, oh my gosh, because my ego, she can like, I mean, somebody asked in a different room recently was like, what is the work that's in front of you? And what are your tools? You know, and I had to think about it. And I was like, I think the work in front of me right now is the humility side of things because we thrive there. And yet, at least for me, sometimes I bebop up out of that. And anytime I do that, I don't enjoy the experience.
Right.
It's never a good time.
Yep.
To let ego just run wild. And so like trying to do my best to like not go there as much anymore and accepting that that's something I've struggled with, you know?
Yeah.
But it is interesting in my relationship as well right now where he's able to communicate with me if something that I do disturbs him or something that happens or whatever. And I just commend him. And also I love that he encourages me to use my voice and I can say these things and I'm not afraid of like what he's going to say.
Totally.
That's so powerful.
Because he's a secure man.
It's so powerappreciate
what a beautiful thing to be with a secure man.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy. It's so cool. Shout out Jimmy.
Yeah.
Shout out Jimmy. But
shout out Steven.
So
too.
I was going to say shout out Steven. And so it's from there, what the trend is, if it's a call out on my action, then realistically, I do get the opportunity and this is something I do is like, I need to sit with that. Like I need to see how I feel about that. And in this moment, I don't really have the capacity to do that super well.
Yeah.
You're going to need to give me a minute.
Yeah.
Because what I always do immediately is like defensive. Yep. I am defensive immediately. You tell me I did something that disturbed you in some way and my brain automatically goes, you're wrong. I'm right.
Yep. Same.
And so like trying to break that and go, we're on the same team.
Right.
We actually want to go to the same place.
Yep.
So like I don't need to try to win this.
Yep.
And so for me, at least right now, what that looks like is often just like I am immediately defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I get the reaction from him that like it's obvious that I'm being defensive, and I'm able to go, I think you need to give me a minute. And then from there, he's even called out oftentimes, I will say, like, I'm going to need to come back to this. And then like, it's so wonderful to be able to communicate healthily. And he's like, you know, okay. Cause then I'll tell people like, let's loop back to that.
Yeah.
And then I won't loop back.
Yeah.
Because I'm still avoidant. Like you said.
Yep.
I still like, it's like, oh, I got out of jail free.
Yep.
you know? Like, okay, I got the situation. Not that there's thankfully like there hasn't been anything to eat it, but like, okay, I got it calmed down. So now I'm just gonna, you know, and like maybe I do have a conversation with a mentor about it and maybe make some headway, but I still don't loop back.
Yeah.
So these are just like ongoing character development, like growth things.
Yep.
And it's so okay. And like the thing that one of my good friends, Erin Monson, she's come on the podcast for 2 different episodes. One was relationship with food and one was relationship with self. They're early episodes and they're wonderful. She's like a family therapist. She's just amazing. And she talks all the time about like the healing that you can do with another that you cannot do by yourself. And like at times when she would say that, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna don't get access to that.
Yep.
You know?
I know, seriously, one of my best friends is like, I don't want to do this. I want to back out. I want to back out of this relationship. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, well, you're never going to learn. You're never going to get to have that experience. And she's like, well, I guess I just exactly what you're saying. And I'm like, that's not what you really want. That's the easier thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. So I think to summarize the relationship section, if you will, the powerful thing to me is just that like you've been on a journey now of you had to get free of substances that were numbing you, distracting you, all of those things. And then you had to deal with this other food addiction. And then we have to deal. So it's just like the continual, gradual chipping away and like discovering how to like be in self and regulate
healthy
self.
adult.
Yeah. Which I mean, might sound like silly, but like it really is. It's true. It's so powerful because then I think too, like you're 33 right now, right? So like, dude, there's so much realistically, most likely, so much runway ahead of you and of me, where we get to like continue to iterate on this stuff. And this is just where we are now.
Yeah.
And so catch us in 10 years.
Yeah, no kidding. We're doing work that most people will never do for their entire life at 33, which is not even like halfway through life. Like, can I just get a dab there?
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to move on from there? Is there anything else relationship wise that you feel like is like a call out, noteworthy? You'd love to touch on it?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think the main thing is just like shout out Steven. Thanks for supporting my girl so that she could do some healing. I really do appreciate you. Okay. I want to move on to friendship. So no longer romantic partnership, but because you are a person that I've been able to identify as like, that's an individual that I would like to get to know better, spend time around, just exist in the same room as, one, how cool is that? That less than a decade ago, there was just a whole different storyline.
Totally.
So that's beautiful in and of itself. And then like, what are things that you look for in friendship, in relationship? Like, what are things that attract you to other people? Because the reason I'm asking that is I know that there are a lot of people who are in different stages of their journey that are trying to cultivate community and aren't sure how to do it, that are trying to find those new relationships. Maybe they're outgrowing some of their relationships that they've had and it's making other people uncomfortable and they haven't yet found the people that do fit their vibe now and all of that stuff. Like this just very real human stuff. And I hear a lot about it and I relate to it, right? Like, and so what attracts you to a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think what attracts me is the light, right? That's the obvious. Like if you have a light about you, that means that you're awake to life. You know what's going on around you. You're aware. But I'm attracted to people who are vulnerable, who aren't scared to show the ugly parts, because I spent a lot of my life thinking that being positive and being in a good mood all the time and having that to offer was what people wanted. And in fact, it's like not relatable, you know? So, you know, I want to know, like, you struggle, you fuck up sometimes, you know what I mean? But you can be honest and real about that and are willing to grow. And then people I watch people. So I want to know you're consistent, because if you're consistent, that makes you safe in my book. You know what I mean? And you know, I watch how people treat other people, you know? If you don't treat the person next to you with the same amount of kindness, or you're someone who like is cliquey, like I don't really know, like no bad blood, but like I don't really have any interest in that, you know? So to sum it up, like vulnerable authenticity, like authenticity shines.
What are actions that you take that cultivate relationships with people that you admire, respect, would like more of a relationship with? What are things that you do to attract that individual? Because I think that's powerful stuff too.
I think being that person, you know what I mean, is the short answer. Yep. Like when I stopped trying to get all these certain types of relationships into my life and I started being the kind of person that I wanted to be in relationship with, then those people kind of just found me, you know?
It's so true.
It's so true.
I'm just thinking about the past couple of years of life and all of it. It's like, I look at the people I've had the opportunity to befriend and I'm like, that's nuts. And I remember when it first started to occur, like looking around me one day and being like, I watched these people on the internet for a very long time and now they're my friends.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And then I think about it and like what happened was largely like, be a decent human, be consistent. Like you said, that's such a powerful one. Care deeply and look how you can add value to the room. And I think if you consistently just like, and maybe that doesn't mean that you have to have a lot to offer, right? But you just have to like care.
Well, it's like that quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, leave people better than you left them.
Better than you found them.
Better than you found them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that is my MO. Like I want people to, when they've had an interaction with me, to feel better, you know?
I have a random question. I have no idea what your answer is going to be, but this is something that I currently struggle with. So we're just going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just make this about me.
No.
Workaholism. Is that something that through your recovery that you have struggled with?
No, I wouldn't say workaholism. I would say inauthenticity in the work environment.
Okay.
Like wanting to be viewed a certain way. Like I'm a pretty hard worker, but I also have learned pretty solid boundaries with work. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I talk about those off air or do I?
It's a common thing though. It's just like eating. It's just like relationship. It's just like anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If there's anything that like I identify right now that I'm like, I just easily like teeter over the line. And it's genuinely like, thankfully I have all of these other routines that really, really hedge against that beautifully. But it's something I can easily fall prey to and think I need to be doing more. I mean, so much of like, even earlier today was irritable thinking like, I need to be doing more. I need to be doing more. I need to be doing more.
And it's hard in your profession too, because it's also blended, right? You actually have a passion for this and it's a big part of your life because it's your passion, and then it's your work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is so funny because I watched people like get into the fitness industry on the side for a long time. I was like, I won't do that. I won't do that. And now I'm like fully immersed. I'm like, what have you done? But I do love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. With a friendship. Oh, okay. I did want to ask, because authenticity is such a cool thing and because relatability is such a powerful thing for you to be able to, I mean, like it's already been throughout the entire episode so far. Like it's obvious that you're a very relatable, honest individual, but what would you say at this point in your journey is the struggle that you navigate today?
Like I think honest communication when there's like, when I'm feeling disturbed by something, being able to communicate that. That's still something that I work on regularly in my work life, in my relationship, in my friendships. It's like, it is one of the core wounds that I am like currently really trying to embody. And yeah, it just takes time.
Yeah. I appreciate you just being honest about all of it.
Yeah.
I just know how much like if you think about any of the pivotal moments for you in your story, like you said, the girl talking about the cake, you know, like those things meant so much when you were in a time where you just needed to hear somebody tell the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do want to ask you now too, to get a little bit more granular about your lifestyle, because you went from crazy ragers all the time, whatever your life looked like then, which was like, you know, erratic and not consistent and whatever. So like you to me, because I talked about how you show up with this presence and things like that. What are the contributing daily actions that like cause you to be a person who can show up in that way at this stage of life?
Yeah. So I think balance is first and most important, like balancing all areas of my life. And you know, this like culture we have of self-care is so skewed. Self-care is, yes, getting your nails done and all of those things are very pampering, but
I love your nails right now, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
The like sheen chrome that's on them or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I love it. Anyway.
Yeah. But the self-care part in terms of continuing in therapeutic work is vital. Taking care of my like physical well-being to the best of my ability. Balanced movement is so important to me. I used to be a lot more like only strength based, and for me now it's like my attitude around it has changed. I do what feels good, right? So if that's walking 3 miles, 5 miles that day, great. If it's going to the gym, that's great. If it's yoga, that's great. So really like embodying that and it not being this like rigid thing that I used to do. Like the actions I take to stay awake, right? Like reflecting on my day, staying awake enough to know if I've shown up in an interaction that didn't probably go well, that I have the courage to look at that honestly, and then also, you know, say, hey, I didn't like the way that I showed up. You know what I mean? But just like being an honest person, it's really simple, honestly.
Yep.
Like,
well, okay, so you are a part of an interaction that you feel like didn't go well. What does that look like? Like, how do you actually reflect on that in a way that's constructive? So
I think,
you at somebody at work or whatever, like give me a real example.
Yeah, like so being passive aggressive with my boss, right? Who maybe brought something to my attention, and like you were mentioning earlier, like my defense is to throw it back at you, you know, which is inappropriate for your boss, but you know, an interaction I didn't appreciate with her that I didn't like the way that I showed up, right? For me today, because of how much I practice this and because I am awake, like it's in my body. I feel it immediately. I'm like, oh God, I need to make that right, you know? And so, you know, whether it's calling somebody, praying, you know, if I even need to call somebody, usually I know. And just saying like, and taking ownership, like, hey, that was inappropriate, you know? Thank you for your feedback. I'm going to take that into consideration. And next time you bring me feedback, I'm going to do a better job of receiving that. So.
And yet again, what you do there is you like deepen their trust in you because you've shown up in a way where you could be trustworthy, I guess, like where you could be honest. And even if that's you're saying that, and I definitely like, I think it's so cool too, as you're learning these skills, like for me, even now, recognizing that I feel resentment, like that's such a, you know, previously that was such like a foreign concept. And then knowing from there that like for me at this stage, largely whenever that takes place, like getting an outside perspective can be really beneficial. Seeking that in the right space is really important with somebody who can actually like help me with that, you know? Then of course, like taking it to God, it's just really cool. Oh, I didn't even ask you, were you always spiritual?
I think there was a part of me that was always a little bit, but did I have any practices or anything like that? No.
Yeah. But today you have practices that are.
Yeah.
What do they look like?
For me, it's really open-ended, like sitting quiet in the morning, reading different spiritual literature, studying that literature, like bouncing it off of other people, you know, what do you think about that? What are, you know, I love like sharing minds with people around that stuff, quiet time, meditation, and reflection. Yeah.
I love it. I need to be better at that. The meditation
we always
part.
can. Me too. Always.
Okay. I think that's, we're done.
Amazing.
Is there anything else you wanted to add? We have to end with 3 things that you're grateful for. So I don't know if you know that, but that's a consistent theme here. So what are 3 things that you're grateful for today?
Man, I am grateful for my simple life that is like drama free. Love it. I love my little space, my little home, my plants. And I love my friends and my relationships. So I think that was maybe 4 or 5, but I'm very
hammered through them. That is somebody who is spiritually doing well whenever they don't even have to think, and they're just like blah, 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 gratitude.
Very grateful. It's been a pleasure. It really has.
Yes.
So much fun.
No, I love it. I think that, yeah, I definitely got to know a little bit more about your story, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then I'm just excited to continue. It's fun. Of course, maybe this is just weird, but I like play out things in my head of like over the course of time. I'm like, yeah, so eventually like, you know, she's going to get married and like, I'll be there. And like these are things my brain has done literally in the middle of this.
Like the humanness. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say 3 things that I'm grateful for. Oh, okay. I'm grateful. Did you see the plant? Oh, dang it. Hold on.
She has risen.
Already addressed. So I'm grateful for my plants as well. And I'm saying that
She
because
literally rose.
I meant to water her before. So this girl, she is, oh, it died again. Okay, whatever. She's very moody. And so whenever you showed up, I meant to water her this morning, but I didn't get around to it. And so she was like, I'm mad. So how fun is that? Like,
so fun.
I don't know.
Plants are amazing.
I guarantee you there's gonna be people listening who are like, yeah, I don't get that. That did not resonate with me.
But for the ones who do, we do.
For them plant mamas out there, the plant daddies, we feel you. Okay. I'm also grateful for, I just have like an aunt and uncle that's coming to visit. I'm going to go see Jimmy's family for the first time here soon. Like different people, family members, things like that, that like another friend is going to come visit here soon. And it's just cool to get to maintain relationships from a distance. I'm just grateful for people. And then I think weirdly, the other gratitude is probably going to be that I mentioned about like tearing up earlier today about like not wanting to inconvenience people. Why that is a gratitude is simply because I'm okay today with like, I can even feel that. Like I can even let myself, I can even see that that's there and feel it and know that like, okay, there's more growth on the table.
Yeah.
There's more to go get. Like that's cool because I'm not numb anymore.
Yep.
Which
it's
fits
gold.
This very much. So, okay. Is there anything that you would like to like promote or anything other than you're just trying to be a total badass and like support?
I don't think so. Not at this time, but like to be determined.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If there's
TBD.
if there's ever anything that you are, then we will get that done.
Yep. Yep.
But literally she just hopped off social media. So I'm like, I don't even know. I can't even tell you to find her on Instagram right now. And I love that for you. Why did you decide to do that?
I think wanted more space in my life to connect with source, to, lessen the distraction a little bit,
And it's relatively new.
2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks. Oh, okay. I haven't seen any of your bebopping videos in a couple weeks, so I guess that makes sense. She does this cute little thing, which she's not doing now because she's not on socials, but she was on socials, and she would do this lip singing. She does like lip syncing, but it's often to like rap songs and stuff, and she like gets this like snarl going, and like for being the sweet, cute human that she is, it brightens my day. So you can just send me those directly now.
You got it, girl.
But I do love those.
Yeah.
Okay, so. In 2 weeks, sorry, now I just have questions. In 2 weeks, what have you gained from that?
Yeah, just more quiet time, more mental space to see kind of what's going on underneath the surface, Are there any disturbances? Am I, I'm also really eating clean. And so I'm trying to only eat when I'm hungry. And I'm really noticing how many times I want to like eat when I'm not hungry. Or go to scroll. And so it's providing more space for me to tap in. Yeah.
It's they say it's compulsive behavior. Like it's surpassed the point of being like this what do they even call it? Like addiction to whatever. I don't, like it's full-blown compulsion at this point, And then also I keep referencing it and not remembering the term, so I need to look it up again. But there's a Japanese term for lonely mouth that speaks to our behavior and how like it really is just this thing that we just kind of autopilot do.
Totally.
And I love that you're building more awareness and more mindfulness into that, because food can be this beautiful practice if you let it be. And then if you don't, and it gets to be an ongoing journey. If there's any area of my life, I talk about this all the time. If there's any area on that front that like I'm excited because there's still more on the table there too. Yeah. It's absolutely with that, because I grew up with that coping mechanism and that distraction and that whatever as well. And so today there are still days where I don't get it done. And I do just go ahead and let myself self-soothe via distracted, numbing, eating, whatever. And then there are many days too where I'm like, this is actually just an opportunity to be present.
Totally.
And like when I can do the be more present, I'm I enjoy that so much. Now I eat to fuel myself and I'm not like under eating at all. Like thankfully we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
But it's so cool. Okay. I just love that you're having the experience and you're letting yourself, I cannot, being that I run my business online and so on. Like I love getting to do it. But anytime anybody like does I'm like, ooh, okay, what are you learning?
Sounds fun.
What's going on? Yeah. Just, I commend you because at some point, like that can be a very healthy thing to do, to say, I'm going to back away from this. I'm going to plug into like what's actually
plug
around,
in.
yeah,
plug
into what's around me
instead
of what's out there and see what that feels like.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. I do have a coaching business that I do have to plug. So I do online and in-person coaching. So if you go to clairebayscoach.com, you can see I have an app and we do custom workout plans, custom meal plans, once weekly coaching calls. There's group, there's one-to-one. You can apply there. And then if you are also interested, if you're in the Austin area and you would like to work together in a one-to-one capacity, then you can also reach out to me there on Instagram. All of that will be in the description. But I just really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate your time too.
I think it's so cool that you literally you didn't need to plug anything. There's nothing. You just simply know that like your story has depth and weight. You enjoy the connection. Like, I guess maybe instead of just pasting that on you, why did you decide to come do this?
Because you asked me to.
And you've learned to say yes.
I've learned to say yes. And you know what? I haven't spent a lot of time with Claire and just wanted to come spend some time with you.
And I just shoved a microphone in your face.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, we'll go do contrast therapy together soon.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, we're out. We hope that you choose to have a beautiful day.
That's right.